Hello and welcome to this edition of Agenda, where we are literally talking of justice. That's the name of Justice Leila Seth's new book, and she's here with us. Thank you for being here. Justice Leila Seth, of course, you know, it's a rare interview, and she's a pioneer, of course. She's the first woman judge of Delhi High Court. She's also the first woman to become Chief Justice of a state High Court. So it's really a privilege to have you here. In this book, perhaps for the first time, we're getting your insights into what it was like working with Justice Verma Committee, the committee which proposed changes to legislation, and I think something which has touched all our lives, especially all of us who live here in the capital, so affected by what happened on December 16th. Now I want to ask you, it's been a good almost 2 years since that change happened, since that incident happened. Do you think what you set out to do in that committee, you've achieved that?
Well, it's very difficult to say that we've achieved that, but let's put it like this, that the report dealt with many aspects, not only the actual rape and the amendment to the law for that, but it also dealt with the aspects of security of women, of how there should be good street lighting, how there should be sex education in the schools, because basically, you know, to change anything, you can change the law, but you have to change mindsets, because to implement the law, unless you change mindsets, you don't implement the law. And so I think that was an important thing we put in. As far as the law is concerned, we had made many other suggestions, and one of the things which I always like to talk about is marital rape. I think that marital rape should have been made an offence. The government didn't do it because there's an exception that is in the law, that if a man rapes his lawful wife,
yes,
it's not rape. If a man has sexual intercourse or other sexual offence with his wife, it's not a criminal offence, it's not rape. And that, I think, is unfortunate, because after all, a woman, when she gets married, she doesn't give up her own bodily integrity. And the idea used to be that, the old idea was that once you get married, you give your consent, which you can't take back during your course of your marriage, which is really shocking if you think of it.
What do you think, and you talk about women and, you know, gender habits and gender relations within the judiciary, and how judges need to change their mindset. Now, what do you think it's going to take? Why do we keep hearing these regressive judgments from judges?
Well, you know, it's the way you're brought up, it's the way you've seen your father treat your mother, it's the way you treat your wife, it's the way you treat your sisters, it's the way you treat your daughters. So these are things that have gone on for years, and that's why you find quite a big gap between the lower judiciary and the higher judiciary on the question of gender, and in the question of, you know, sexual offences. And you'll find many cases where, say, the most famous is probably Bhavri Devi's case.
That's right, yeah.
And there's recent cases also, but that's famous because the lower judiciary really
threw out the case.
Yes, threw out the case. On what ground? On kind of saying that middle-aged men don't commit rapes. Respectable people don't do this, and these were respectable people. I mean, a upper caste man won't rape a lower caste woman. I mean, these are absolutely ridiculous things on which that judgment was founded by the. But unfortunately, despite that, you know, that case is still pending in appeal somewhere, and there are hardly any hearings. So, in a sense, justice has eluded Bhavri Devi, even though she was so strong about fighting. But the one good thing that came out of it was the VISHAKHA judgment, which is the judgment which really the Supreme Court said that if there's sexual harassment at workplace, then some steps must be taken. And the Supreme Court decided those steps. And for 16 years, the government didn't pass a law. And
till 1995.
Supreme Court said that, well, till the government passes a law, this will hold good. And it's only now in 2013 that the law was passed, Sexual Harassment Act.
Now,
so you see, that just shows how it takes time for things to change, and that education is the answer. According to me, education and awareness. You have to talk about these things. That's the answer.
You mean
to change.
Education among judges? It's not there enough?
Well, you know, I mean, education is everywhere, but even there's a chapter in my book called Gender Sensitization of the Judiciary.
Yes.
And I think that's very important. I mean, judges have to be also taught that you go to a new country and learn a new language, you have to learn the language of gender sensitivity if you're not aware of it. And so I think that's very important, by discussions, by seminars, by various methods.
Well, I have to ask you at this point, because you bring up gender sensitization of judges, and here we are. Our audience today is a special one, because they're all aspiring lawyers. They all aspire to get into the legal profession, and I see a lot of women here as well. And when we talk about gender sensitization, what has become very, very topical, what has become a matter of major concern, is some of the rising cases that have started now coming out of the closet, which perhaps was hidden before, of harassment of women in the judiciary. We had the Madhya Pradesh case of a judge being harassed, and before that we had various interns. Are you concerned about this? Is this something that has developed over the years, or was it there when you were practicing as well?
Well, there were so few women. Actually, when I joined the profession in Patna, there were just 2 women in the whole High Court. So you can.
Well, there are 2 women in Supreme Court as you write now.
No, the 2 women judges in Supreme Court. But as a practicing lawyer, we were only 2 women in the whole High Court. There was a woman who was much older than me, and there was myself. I suppose the question of women having, and strangely enough, once we both, Dharamshila Lal, who was a senior lawyer, she was appearing for a rapist, and I was a budding young lawyer, and I was holding what they call a state brief, and I was appearing, against and for the state. And you can imagine, we argued this case in court, the 2 women in that High Court arguing this case, one on each side. The entire High Court lawyers were either in the court, outside that court, watching us.
Really?
Yes, and this is back in
a strange sight.
For them it was a strange thing, and for me also it was quite awkward, because I was a little embarrassed to talk about these things. But the senior lawyer, Dharamshila, she was a good criminal lawyer, and she argued it without any kind of embarrassment. So then I also felt, well, if she can argue without embarrassment, I can also argue without embarrassment. And luckily, eventually I succeeded. So it was a good thing, it shows how things change, and how when something like that happens, it brings about a total change in the setup of society also.
Do you think the setup right now is dealing with these harassment cases effectively?
The thing is this, now there is a procedure established by which you need to go to set up committees in every university, in every business place, and now in the courts as well.
Yes.
But they're not really covering the judges, and so there is another procedure that's slowly being set up. So it's taking time. I think all these things take time.
Is that something that worries a lot of, I think, that a lot of the women aspiring to be lawyers and judges?
Ma'am, you were the first women Chief Justice. What was the Indian society's viewpoint as an authority? Because people in India don't really accept women as an authority.
You're right. In fact, when I went to Himachal Pradesh as Chief Justice, they were only men judges. And I was very careful, because being a mother and a woman, you know how to handle these things. I never, went sort of hammer and tongs against what they said. I would ask them for their opinion and get everybody's opinion, and then if I agreed with it, it was fine. If I didn't agree with it, I would firmly try to persuade them and then bring them around to my opinion. But I never sort of said, this is my opinion first, So I think there is a way, like you handle children at home,
Of course, yes.
And women I think much better at handling these things.
Yeah.
But of course, prejudices are there, but you have to slowly get around them. And I remember that as a lawyer, there was a terrible prejudice, because I remember doing an opinion case, and it was sent by the solicitor to the client, and the client sent it back saying, I want a male opinion. And so the solicitor said, no, it's not a question of a male opinion, it's a young woman and she's very competent and she's given this opinion, so you must accept it. He wouldn't have it. So then it was sent to the senior most lawyer, and he just wrote out one line, I endorse the opinion of Leila Seth. And the man had to pay huge amount of fees for that, but he was happy. He'd got a male opinion. So women at that time, I'm talking about the 50s, early 60s, had to be equal plus. You wouldn't get work if you were just equal.
You had to be better.
You had to be better, and there had to be some people who were brave enough to give you that work.
Well, I wanted to ask you, just bring you back to what happened after December 16. One of the things that you write about in this as well is the changes and how all of you decided that the juvenile age was should be left at 18. Now, since then, we've had the new draft juvenile justice bill that's been, brought in Parliament. What do you make of the fact that it's been reduced?
I'm sad about it, because I think that, after all, what is punishment for? What is society about? It's trying to reform people. And if a young person who's 18 years old, commits a crime, we should try to reform him, and that's why we have the whole juvenile justice system, to try and reform people. If we put him in with hardened criminals, then the chances of his becoming more hardened rather than becoming, a reformed person.
Another thing that all of you also voted against and didn't have in the recommendation was the death sentence, because you felt that it isn't the right kind of deterrent. Now, what we've seen since then is that not only have the December 16 accused got the death sentence, it became part of the new law, the new strengthened law,
yes,
to recommend that. Now, your reactions to that?
Well, we were definitely against the death penalty. For one reason, I think all three of us were genuinely against death penalty per se. I think many countries now don't have the death penalty, and we think that that's the correct approach. But apart from that, the law was already there that if someone died and it was a case of murder, then death penalty was there. So we didn't want it for a rape case, and we thought it could be imprisonment for life. I mean, people wanted castration. Actually, at the time, there was a demand for castration also, but we were
put
against.
In front of the committee.
Yes, there were 80,000 emails and letters and all that.
So how many people asked for castration?
We don't remember. I don't remember.
But quite a few?
Yes, people asked for castration. And even at the time of the protests, there were posters up, demanding castration.
Did the committee seriously consider it?
Well, we did, of course, because if anything comes before you, you have to consider it, So, but we were definitely against that. And the death penalty, we were of the one opinion that there should be no death penalty. We are now trying to move away from the death penalty in every kind of crime, and that's the modern approach.
Okay, we're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we're going to have one of the most interesting aspects of this new book, why Justice Seth thinks Uniform Civil Code is a good thing and not necessarily a political thing. And also, we're going to take more questions from our aspiring lawyers audience that we have over here. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're having a special conversation with Justice Leila Seth. Her new book, Talking of Justice, is out. And Justice Seth, I had to ask you, one of the things that you deal with in this book is the concept of Uniform Civil Code. You seem to be a big advocate of it. And what's interesting is that you say it's not a political issue for you, we must have it because it's a gender issue. Explain that to us, how you say that it's for the benefit of all of us women in India.
Well, I think it's very important because I think, first of all, it's in the Constitution. It's a directive principle of the Constitution, and it's the way we should look at things, and eventually we should make it a law. The point is that why should one woman be treated differently from another woman? I know there was a research done by a law teacher, and she said that her Muslim domestic servant was very unhappy that the Hindu domestic servant would get maintenance whereas she wouldn't get it. And she said, is desh mein koi kaanoon nahi hai? Because that there should be an equal law for women, and it would also take away some of the should I say, things that are not really acceptable, like the talaq in the Muslim law, or in the Christian law there was a question of a different, there was a different law for women and for men if you wanted a divorce on the ground of adultery. A man could get it on the ground of adultery, a woman had to prove adultery plus cruelty or something. But that law luckily has been changed. It's the
You
correct
write
way.
in your book that no government has had the gumption to do it because, you know, they're always afraid and it's a vote getting issue. It's something that is very, very sensitive. But the BJP government which we have now is a majority government and its Uniform Civil Code has always been on the agenda. So are you more hopeful that they're
Well,
going to
you know,
bring
the thing is what I say is that every government should have been willing to do it. And in fact, when I was in the Law Commission, I suggested to Justice Reddy, who was the chairman, that we do a report on it. And he said it's not the right time.
Really?
So when is the right time? Of course, the right time would have been better if the Congress government had done it. Because at that time, you had a Muslim president,
Yes.
Christian UPA leader, you had an analytic Hindu leader, Mr. Advani, and you had a Sikh Prime Minister. Now what better could you have got? But just
So it would have sent out a really good message.
but just because the BJP had hijacked something which was a good idea, they didn't want to do it, I suppose, or it was too politically sensitive.
So ma'am, what were your experience when you were a part of the Law Commission and it recommended for the
No, as far as
amendment to the Hindu Succession Act, even when the act...
I'll tell you, the Hindu Succession Act came in 1955-56, and that brought about the girl's right to property in her father's property. I mean, the girl got a right. If there was no will, she had an equal right with her brother. And right up to 1986, I remember a case coming before me, and there were 3 sisters and 3 brothers, and they came to court and they said, give this property to the 3 of us boys. And I said, how do I do that? They said, we've got affidavits from our sisters saying they don't want the property. I said, no, you call the sisters, I don't believe these affidavits. And the girls came and I asked them, I said, you know, how is it that you do not know that you have a right? You can get 1/6 of this property is yours. And they said, yes, but then we don't want to fight with our brothers. Where will we go for holidays with our children? You know, so we will rather give it up. And I couldn't persuade them to withdraw their affidavits. But today, and at that time also in many cases, women are willing to fight for their right. Men are willing to give it without fighting. The 3 brothers would have probably said, take your share each. We can all divide it 1/6, because if there had been 6 boys, they would have had 1/6 only. So they were willing then. So why not for the girl? So now they are willing, and often I find even sometimes men, where their father has willed the property to them, the entire property, they'll say, no, we'll share it with our sister.
Do you think that issue and that social movement will force a change in 377? I know that that's something that you really deal with here.
I think that the change will come, and I'm an optimist at heart, and I think that though I'm 84 years old, I still am an optimist, and I think that I see slow change, and I'm sure change will come. But it's up to you. All of you, you must never give up. That's the one thing. You must always remember, keep on fighting, keep on pushing, never give up. That's the thing.
Well, law and justice, no one talks about it better than Justice Leila Seth. Thank you so much for sharing all these ideas. And this book, it's a must read for all of us who want to understand the law, who want to understand what the law means for us and what we can gain from it. Thanks very much, Justice Seth, for us, and thanks to all our audience as well. That's it on Agenda. Thanks for watching. Bye.